पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वाम् अनुसन्तधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्. Salutations to all on this platform. We have been discussing thus far the Netritva model of leadership. We have seen that we have to nurture the non-pareil nature within us, and we moved on in the last session to the second aspect, the E, that is equanimity of mind. And in the equanimity of mind, we were looking at the 14th verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is not a verse, it is a mantra, because it talks about how we can develop our forbearance. Matra sparshastu konteya shitoshna sukadukkhadaha agama payino anityaha tam titikshasva bharata. We were talking about titiksha and how do we develop this titiksha. This is the verse which we have been seeing. We also saw that there are two levels of titiksha. One is the lower level titiksha and one is the higher level titiksha. And titiksha has got 5 fundamentals. Basically, it is of the nature of intending good for people. It has to draw upon the discriminating faculty which is there within us, which is viveka. It also talks about the knowledge which we develop on the omniscience of the Creator and the perfection which is already there in the nature. And it talks about no expectation. We also saw in the last session the 47th verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Karmani eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. And the 5th aspect on which the nature of titiksha or the trait of titiksha is seated upon is non-complaining. Complaining and bearing is the lower level titiksha, which is seeing a defect and overcoming. In between, we go on complaining that this should not have been there. This is spoiling my progress. We saw the story of Narayana Bhattadri in the last session. And the higher level titiksha, we see that not seeing the defect at all and seeing a meaning which is coexistent with nature. We saw the example of Bharata when he said that it is my sin which sent Rama to the forest. He says nobody else is responsible for this. It is me who is responsible. And we started with the explanation of the Ishavasya Upanishad 8th verse. Saparyagat shukram akayam abranam asnaviram shuddham apapa vidham kavirmanishi paribhu swayambhu yatatatyatorthan vadadha chashvatibhyaha samabhyaha. This beautifully brings out that there is absolute perfection. When the Lord created this universe, He has created this with absolute perfection, and it is that perfection which we have to draw near us. And what is the process with which we work to draw that positive energy, to draw that perfection onto us and lead us towards that perfection? Saha, the Atman Swayambhuhu, the Lord, Paryagat is all pervading. Akayam, without a body, Asnaviram, without muscles, Apapa Vidham, untainted by the sin or ignorance. Here, in the last session, we saw the first verse of the Mahanarayana Upanishad, Ambasya Pare, Bhuvanasya Madhye, Nakasya Prishthe, Mahato Mahiyan. That is, even though the Lord is all pervading in this mortal world, in this Prakriti, there is no sin which is attached to him. Shukram, radiant, Avranam, sheatless, Shuddham, pure, Kavihi, the all-seeing, Manishi, the all-knowing, Paribhuhu, all-compassing. Yatha tathyataha, in a proper way, he has created everything in a proper way. Shashvatibhyaha, for eternal Prajapatis, that is for the entire creation, Arthan, to do their assigned duties. Very importantly, the meaning of this particular Ishavasya Upanishad is the whole crux lies on equanimity, lies here, because the Lord, when he created us Padmanabha, when he created this cosmos, he has arranged the pattern of things that they do not need interference. We need to understand. We need to draw that non-interference within us. The arrangement is complete to the core. We also saw in the last sessions that today the Z culture follows our Brahma Sutra. Perfection is God. Perfection in work is God. We need to understand this very, very clearly. The perfection, what we are wanting to find out in our work, is God, which does not have a form. When we are looking at that, we say Akilaheya Pratyanika Samasta Kalyana Guna Paripurna. Akilaheya Pratyanika is not without any defect. A person who is without any defect. Samasta Kalyana Guna Paripurna. One which is full of virtues, one which is full of qualities. Zero defects, 100% quality is God. That is why when we relate that or adapt this particular aspect of the Swarupa Nirupaka Dharma, that is the identification mark of the God. What is the identity of a God? Akilaheya Pratyanika Samasta Kalyana Guna Paripurna. This is called Ubhaya Lingatva. Ubhaya Lingatva, the two qualities of the God which basically determines him, the identification mark, Ubhaya Lingatva. Ubhaya means two. So here, when we are talking about the arrangement is complete to the core. The arrangement in this particular universe is complete to the core. Everything that is necessary has been provided in this nature. Everything is present in this nature. No one can meddle with it. No one can interfere with it. No one can change it. No one can improve upon it. No one can add it or subtract from it. It is that we will have to find out the process which gels with these forces of the universe. The process should gel with the forces of this universe to take us through. For all times to come, provisions have been made by the Creator in such a dexterous manner that they shall come to the people who are really in need of them at the appropriate hour. People who are in need of that particular force, that particular knowledge, that particular help from nature, if they crave for it, if they are sincere in work, if they don't work selfishly, if they work selflessly, if they are seeing a higher meaning in their work, at that point in time, the nature converges, the nature transpires in trying to make our work successful. The universe is like a general store. We need to understand the universe is like a general store, and it has everything in it. It lacks nothing. There is no need to invent or create anything for one's practical existence. They have only been summoned into action. Here, there is a beautiful anecdote of the gopis performing the Katyayani Vrata. We just started this in the last session. Hemante prathame masi Nanda Vraja Kumarikaha Cheruhu Havishyam Bhunjanaha Katyayanyasya Navratam Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayoginyadhishwari Nandagopa Sutam Devi Patimme Kurute Namaha. This is from the Srimad Bhagavata, where the gopis are performing the Katyayani Vrata, where they say Hemante Prathame Masi. Srimad Bhagavata says during the Dhanurmasa Margashirsha Masa, all the gopis come together. Chetruhu Havishyam Bhunjanaha. They do the Katyayani Vrata. For what? Externally, for bringing down rain, for getting rain. Here, Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayogin Even then, for the external cause, they want to bring down rain, but internally, each one wants to be close and wants to be owned by Krishna. Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayogin Yathishwari Nandagopa Sutam Devi Patimme Kurute Namaha. Krishna should be owning us. We need to become the wives of Krishna. All the gopis pray thus. At that point in time, when there was sincerity, when it was done for a universal cause, when there was a social responsibility, when there was no selfishness in whatever they were doing, at that point in time, the rain god, Varuna, we call him, Varuna was commanded by the Lord, by the Creator, to go and help these gopis. And these gopis ordered Varuna that you will have to rain in such a way that people are delighted. You should not be raining like a tsunami. You should not be raining so that people lose their lives. You should not be raining to disrupt the entire mankind. You need to rain so that people can do their activities well. You need to rain so that there is Sasya Samriddhi, there is Phala Samriddhi, there is abundance of crop, there is abundance of flowers, abundance of fruits, and there is delight all round. This is a beautiful anecdote from the Srimad Bhagavata, where the nature conspires and then sees to it that people are successful when they have the sincerity, when they have the selflessness, and when they shed selfishness. And here in the 10th chapter in the Vibhuti Yoga, the Lord says that everything originated from me. I am the creator of everything. Once we know this, He is perfect and He will not do anything wrong. There are no defects in His creation. We start getting that confidence that we need to improve that process of work, going closer and closer to Him, being instrumental in the cause and not having the ego that I am causing this entire activity. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhavasamanvitaha. People who understand this, they are Buddhas. They are people who are knowledgeable, and they come to me with that emotion. I become their emotion. Machittaha madgata pranaha bodhayantah parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. These are beautiful verses from the Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the creator of everything, and everything mattas sarvam pravartate. From me, everything originates. That is why we need to understand that we have not come out of sin. We have come out of we have come out of divinity. We are born with divinity. That is why again and again we need to reinforce within ourselves that we are divine spiritual beings in a human form. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvidaha. There is a parallel connection between us and our creator. There is a parallel connection between the soul and the creator of the soul. There is a parallel connection between the Atma and Paramatma, and this parallel connection is invisible to us but can be felt when we go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and nurture the non-pareil nature of this soul, where when we are going deeper and deeper, the equanimity of mind starts developing, saying that I am not the doer. In the next aspect, renunciation, this comes in a detailed form, the process in which these resources of the world are summoned into action in respect of the world or the created beings is already determined. We need to understand. That is why in the Mankutimana Kagga, Rashtrakavi Kuvampu says, Hindagad Mundiralu Ondukshana. That means the moment the soul has to depart from this body, it does not stay for 1 second. It is predetermined, like how the expiry and manufacturing date of a tablet is printed. In the same way, because we will have to enjoy or suffer our prarabdha karma. We saw this in the last session. Prarabdha karma, the manufacturing date of this particular body, which is our birth date, is known to us. But already the day the soul has to depart this mortal coil is also determined. We need to understand. And that is the reason we should not be body-centric. We need not be body-centric, but we need to be soul-centric and then nurturing that non-pareil nature within us. Now, coming to quiz number 6, let us answer a particular quiz before we go to the next verse of equanimity of mind. An ideal leader is self-controlled. Manishankar, can we have this quiz on the screen, please? An ideal leader is self-controlled, gives up all possessions, free from all desires, and all the above. We saw this as a slide in the previous class. An ideal leader is self-controlled, gives up all possessions, free from all desires. So the right answer is all the above. We go to the next. I'm very happy that most of you have answered the option D or the option 4. We go to the next quiz. Titiksha means bearing, tolerance, forbearance, above. Okay. With reference to context, I'm very happy that on a Sanskrit platform, people have answered above. But with reference to the context, we have been talking about forbearance. Bearing and tolerance is the lower level titiksha. Forbearance is the higher level titiksha. So the right answer here, with reference to the context of what we have been discussing so far, is forbearance. That is the right answer, even though the other three also refer to that word titiksha. But when we are talking about the Krishna's voice, we talk about forbearance here. The quiz 6, an ideal leader is self-controlled. I think this is repeated. We will go to the next one. So we were looking at this particular verse. Yeah, I think we have finished this particular, this thing. Titiksha means, I think it has popped up again. Yeah. So here we have seen that there is perfection in nature. So from willpower, the transformation of equanimity of mind is from willpower to internal strength. So from pure willpower, which is the lower level titiksha, we transfer ourselves to internal strength, wherein we see that the nature is conspiring with us, even though it is uncomfortable for us, it is conspiring with us. And during these challenges, how can we develop ourselves? How can we improve ourselves is what we need to see. Then we have higher level titiksha is seeing a defect, overcoming a defect, seeing a meaning which is consistent with nature, and all the above. The question is specific to higher level titiksha. Yeah. Majority of you have ticked option C, which is seeing a meaning which is consistent with nature. Seeing a defect, overcoming a defect is at the lower level of titiksha, where we have to have willpower. So here in equanimity of mind, we are looking at developing our internal stability and developing ourselves internally. So seeing a meaning which is consistent with nature, and how do I change so that I become a part of this nature is the answer here. So C is the right answer. Then now we go to the next verse. We were looking at the 14th verse. Now we will look at the 15th verse, which talks about again equanimity of mind. Yamhina vyathayan chete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram so amritatvaya kalpate. So amritatvaya kalpate. It talks about liberation. A person who practices equanimity of mind attains liberation. Purusharshabha, O superior among all men. Here, we need to understand that Krishna is addressing Arjuna as Purusharshabha. When he is addressing Arjuna, through Arjuna, he is addressing all of us. We need to understand that each one of us is superior than what we think. We have not really dwelt into, not really realized our true potential. O superior among men, he says, Purusha, because that Purusha is there in this Puri. We saw in the last session, who is Purusha? Adi Shankara Bhagavad says, Puri Shayanat Purushaha, one who stays in this body, one who lies in this body is Purushaha. Purnatvat Purushaha, one who is complete in all respects, that non-pareil nature which we saw, one who is complete in all respect, Purnatvat Purushaha. Bahudanat Purushaha, one who gives in abundance, is Purushaha. These were the meanings. Bahudanat Purushaha, Puranatvat Purushaha. One who was there earlier, who is there now, and who is going to be there. Puranatvat Purushaha. In the Vishnu Sahasranama Adhyaya, Adishankara Bhagavad-pada gives 4 meanings for Purusha. That is why, since he is there inside all of us, there is a superior nature inside all of us. We need to be realizing that and not be body-centric. One who treats these, what these ete, samadukha sukham, happiness and sorrow as equal. Dhiram, a person who is bringing to the fore his discriminating faculty. That is the Viveka Jnana. Yam Purusham, that person, na vyathayanti, he does not get distressed. He does not get stressed today. There is a mushrooming of psychological counseling happening across the world. Why? At every stage, right from infancy, right from the time they get some knowledge, adolescence, teens, elders, old age, everywhere there is stress. Why there is this mushrooming? Because there is a business proposition there. But how do we de-stress is what Krishna talks here. First of all, for a leader to lead, he needs to be de-stressed. And then he should be without distress. He needs to be de-stressed before seeing that others can be de-stressed. We need to understand that, stress-free. If the leader is stressed, if the person is stressed within his own, then how can he see that the other people are delighted with his presence or her presence? We need to understand. Navyathayanti. Such a person, amrutatvaya kalpate, is eligible for liberation. What is liberation? Liberation in terms of work is perfection in work. Liberation in terms of work is not getting attached to work. Liberation in terms of work is working through detachment. We need to understand. It is not getting stuck saying that I have done it. It is my job. It is not getting stuck and go on recapitulating the same thing over and over and over again, not get space in the mind to move further. There are 2 things which we need to know. One is Mercury, one is castor oil. We need to decide whether we need to be like Mercuries or we need to be like castor oils. Mercury shoots, it does not stick. But castor oil goes on sticking to that place. Liberation, so amritatvaya kalpate, liberation is not getting stuck at that particular place and then moving towards newer and newer and newer realms of finding out ourselves and finding a new path for people to go. We need to understand this very, very clearly. That particular we try to reinvent ourselves, reinventing ourselves, changing ourselves, seeing a new you on an everyday basis is a very important aspect in so amritatvaya kalpate. He will shed that lethargy within him. He will shed the stagnation within him or her. He will shed the old within him or her and then rediscover that new him which is there or new her which is there. That is rediscovering ourselves through developing our traits every day. And this will happen when you're not stressed. And this will happen when you see both sorrow and happiness equally. We need to understand this very, very clearly. Sukha Dukhe, very important verse. The 38th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which again talks about the equanimity of mind. Sukha Dukhe same kritva Labha labhau jaya jayau tato yuddha yujjasva nainam papam avapsyasi. This first quarter of this verse is again recited like a mantra by many people. Sukha dukkhe same kritva, sukha dukkhe same kritva. Sukha is happiness, dukkha is in distress, same kritva, treating alike, labha alabhau, gain and loss, jaya ajayau, victory and defeat, tataha, thereafter, yuddhaya, for fighting, yujjasva, engage, na evam, never sin will come and stick on to you. Whatever has been done, not doing with an idea of I am doing it, and with an idea that I am interested in the fruits thereof, etc. Fight for the sake of duty. Perform a duty for the sake of duty. Treating alike happiness and distress, loss and gain, victory and defeat, fulfilling our responsibility in this way, you will never incur sin. This is what is told by Krishna. Perform the duty for the sake of duty. Whatever is the result, whether it is favorable, unfavorable, whether it is loss or gain, whether it gives you sorrow or happiness, we need to do our duty for the sake of doing our duty. A sweeper is sweeping a temple. He does it not for the salary which is given to him, because the temple does not give him a salary. A devotee, if we can take it as a devotee who is sweeping the temple, who is cleaning a temple, he comes to the temple, sees that a lot of leaves have fallen down, the tree has shed its leaves, he takes the broomstick voluntarily and starts sweeping. Somebody will be seeing him and he's amused. He comes and asks, what do you get when you sweep? Does anybody pay you? He says, it is time for the final prayers. Let us go have the darshan of the Lord. Let us come back and I will explain it to you. So both of them go. The devotee who was sweeping also thanks the Lord, saying that he gave him an opportunity for service. The other devotee who came is bewildered. He has that quiz. Why is this guy sweeping? Has he got any benefits out of it? And after the prayers, they come back. And then he asks him again, what do you get by sweeping the temple every day? Every day I see you sweeping this temple. What do you get? Silently, the devotee who was sweeping shows the place which was cleaned and shows the place which is still dirty. He says, this is what I get. I see this place clean. The other devotees who come see this place clean. And that is what I get from this particular job. And this brings in that delight in other people. So he was not looking at the difficulty. He was not looking at the amusement which people used to do when he was sweeping. He was not looking at any benefit out of that. And that, with that sense, we will have to do our duty. Here, the explanation from the Bhashya, how can one think of Labha and Alabha as same? They ask question. One gains money, one loses money. Are they not different? This is a question. How can they be treated the same? The answer is, again, when we are discovering our new I, we need to understand that whether it is a gain of money, whether it is a gain of fame, whether it is a loss of money, whether it's a loss of fame, the Atman is unaffected. I am unaffected. I is that Atman which is within you. I am unaffected. With this kind of anusandhana, with this kind of contemplation, with this kind of reinforcement, with this kind of faith, both will become the same. Labha alabha. You lose some, you win some. because the nature is great in creating equilibrium in us. We need to understand. So with such an avikrita buddhi is without vikara in the intellect, without vikara or without disturbance in the intellect. We need to understand. Gain leads to harsha or happiness. Loss leads to shoka or sorrow. We have to, between this sorrow and happiness, we should be beyond this. If one does not undergo this kinds of harsha, shoka, vikara in buddhi is the intellect, then it will not affect anybody. Sukha dukhe same kritva. Smile because the neighbor has got 100 marks. Smile because the neighbor has bought a Skoda. Because we need to understand that everyone, every body is an extension of this Prakriti, and every soul is connected with each other. That is why we say Vasudeva Kutumbakam, Vasudha Yeva Kutumbakam, Vasudha Yeva Kutumbakam. This entire creation is one family. When we start doing this, when we understand that link, Sutre Manigana Iva, Matta Parataram Nanyati, Kinchidasti Dhananjaya, Mai Sarvamidam Protam, Sutre Manigana Iva. Krishna says in the 7th verse of the 7th chapter that this entire universe, all the souls are connected with one another with a string called spirituality. Once we understand, why do we get hatred? Because I have not achieved something which the neighbor has achieved. I have not scored the marks which my classmate has made. I have not got the benefits, or I have not got the comfort which somebody else has got. I think if we understand this connection, if we understand that each body is the extension of Prakriti and each soul, which is infinite, is connected with each other's soul, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Yeko Bahunam, Yo Vidadati Kaman. The Upanishad says, Nityo Nityanam. Nityaha is the Lord, Nityanam are the various souls both in the living and non-living. Chetanaha, Chetananam. One Chetana, which is the Lord, to all the Chetanas, which are the entire universe. Yeko Bahunam, that one creator, Bahunam to all the souls, Yo Vidadati Kaman. Whatever we deserve is given to us. Whatever we deserve by karma is what we get. We need to understand. If this secret is understood by us, we are sukha-dukhe same kritva. We can be in the state of equanimity. We will not have the harsha shoka vikara. Always we will be smiling any given point of time. When we look at Rama, when we look at Krishna, have we seen them with a morose face? They will always be smiling. They will always be smiling, because whether it is difficulty or whether it is comfort, they have always smiled. They have come, especially Rama. Atmanam manusham manye Ramam dasharathatmajam. Atmanam manusham manye. He came as a human being. And even when Kaikeyi asked him to go to the forest, he was smiling. In the Tamil Ramayana, Kamba Ramayana, when Kambana Talvan was asked, you go on explaining Rama as a full moon. The face of Rama is like a full moon. It is always in a state of happiness. Even Valmiki says this, Chandrakantananam Ramam, Ativa Priya Darshanam, Rupa Audarya Gunaihi Pumsam, Drishti Chitta Apaharinam. Chandrakantananam Ramam, Ativa Priya Darshanam. Rama is like the full moon, which is full of the 16 qualities. 16 qualities. There's a very important aspect, my dear friends, very important aspect, because there are 16 personality traits which is told in the Ramayana. In the very first chapter, the Westerners have taken these 16 personality traits and then given us back a model called as the 16 PF models, 16 personality factors. 16 PF models have been taken from the 16 gunas of Rama, which has been told in the Srimad Ramayana, the 16 qualities of Rama, which was asked by Valmiki to Narada in the Konvasmin Sampratam Loke, Gunavan, Viryavan, Dharmagnaha, Kritagnaha, Satyavakyaha, Dridhavrataha, Charitraha, सर्वभूतेषु के हितः को हितः विद्वान् कः समर्थश्च कस्यैक प्रियदर्शनः आत्मवान् कः चितक्रोधः द्युतिमान् कः अनसूयकः कश्च बिभ्रतदेवाश्च जातरोषश्च संयोगे एतम् इच्छाम्यहं श्रोतुं परं कौतूहलं हि मे महर्षे त्वं समर्थोसि ज्ञातुमेवं विधं नरम्. Naram is the word. Is there any human being with these 16 qualities? A full moon has got 16 kalas from Amavasya to Purnima. 16 kalas. That is why we call Shodasha Kala Chandra. These 16 kalas represent the 16 qualities which a human being has got. So, Rama's face, since he had in him manifested all the 16 gunas, his face was always resplendent as a full moon. Resplendent as a full moon. When Kaikeyi asked Rama to go to the forest, that time, how was his face? Somebody asked Kamanat Alvar, how was his face? He says, Appodu alarnda shandamarayai vendradhamma. Appodu alarnda. The lotus is beautiful at the first ray of the sun. It blooms to the maximum at the first ray of the sun. At the first ray of the sun, the beauty of the lotus, Rama's face was like that. Appodu alarnda. Shandamarayai, it was even more beautiful. Vendradhamma, it was even more beautiful than that, is what Kambanat Alvar says. And then Kalidasa says that without any moroseness in his face, without any stress in his face, he tells Kaikeyi, Ambate Pakshapataha, you have done partiality to me and to Bharata. Why there is partiality? There is partiality because to Bharata, you have given him the weight of the entire kingdom. And to me, you are getting me a free ticket to go on an excursion or to go on a picnic for 14 years to a forest dwelling. Ambate Pakshapata. He says, and Sita in the Sundarkanda beautifully says that Rama went to the forest. Manasa purvamasadya. Vachasa punarabraved. First, through his mind, he went. And then he said, I will go to the forest. This is very important. That is why Harsha, Shoka, Vikara should not be there in the Buddhi. If we practice the qualities of Rama, Labha, Alabha, he lost the kingdom. He lost everything. Sita went away from him for 10 months. Even then, Rama's face was full of smiles. So, Sukhadukhe same kritva, labha alabhau, jaya jayau, jaya ajayau. Then it will not affect one. Such a person will think that the gains or losses, sukha or dukkha, are not connected to the Atma, not connected to me. It is foreign to me and does not get affected by any of these. Thereby, Papa and Punya are both avoided. Things don't stick on to us. Then this is another important verse, the 48th verse of the second chapter. Again, this is a sutra. What is yoga? Today, when we look at televisions, when we look at social media, 21st of June, which is the International Yoga Day, we see people doing only asanas and pranayamas, but yama and niyama are not spoken anywhere. In the Ashtanga Yoga, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. These are the 8 angas, 8 limbs of yoga. In the yama, niyama is basically we build our discipline. Then only asana, pranayama. When we are talking about things here, this last quarter of this particular verse is a sutra again. Krishna has given 2 definitions for yoga in Bhagavad Gita. One is in the 48th verse of the 2nd chapter. One is in the 50th verse of the 2nd chapter. 50th verse of the 2nd chapter talks about yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukruta dushkrute. Tasmat yoga yujjasva yogaha karmasu kaushalam. This is the 50th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Dexterity in work is yoga. If you bring about dexterity in work, that is yoga, that is spirituality. Dexterity in work leads you to liberation. Dexterity in work gives you that spiritual bent of mind. For spirituality, we need not shun family. We need not shun society. We need not run away from the midst of the hustle and bustle of the society. We're staying there, doing our duty in a dexterous manner, that will lead us to spirituality. We need to understand that is one definition. But here, when we are talking about equanimity of mind, the 48th verse, samatvam yoga uchyate, samatvam yoga uchyate. This is another sutra or the definition of yoga which Krishna has given, that equanimity of mind is yoga. Equanimity of mind is spirituality. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddha siddhayoho samobhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Dhananjaya, hey Arjuna, yogastha, having equanimity of mind. Here yogastha refers to equanimity of mind. Chitta samadhana, that is equanimity of mind. Sangam tyaktva, having no interest. Siddha asiddhayoho samobhutva, treating siddhi and asiddhi, achievement and failure as equal. Karmani guru, do the karmas. Samatvam yoga uchyate. This kind of samabhava is called yoga. Be steadfast in your performance of your duty, O Arjuna, abounding attachments to success and failure. Such equanimity is yoga. We need to rise beyond asana pranayama. We need to first start with yama and niyama. Here, beautiful explanation is given in the Bhashya. Rajya bandhu prabhritishu sangam tyaktva yuddhadini karmani yogastaha kuru. Where will you have sangha? Either we will have attachment towards the home, we will have attachment towards an organization, we will have attachment towards an institution, or we will have attachment towards the house, towards the materialistic possessions. That is the first attachment. The second attachment is towards people who have been cohabiting with us, people whom we form relationships with, whom we call relatives. One is chit, one is achit. We need to understand. So when he talks about sangam tyaktva, on what should we leave the sangha or the attachment? The first one is the kingdom. If you have sangha with kingdom, then you will have desires and fruits, and so it is a badhaka. It is basically coming as interfering with your growth due to desire and the few fruits therein. If you have sangha or attachment towards your relatives, then you will not do your duty. Yuddha is reference to the context. He is telling Arjuna, but here we will have to take as duty. We will not do our dharma, we will not do our duty, and hence it becomes a interference badhaka by making you not to do your duty. So in both cases, sangha has to be rejected, and our duty, karmas, our duties have to be done with the mindset of yoga. Yuddhadini is told mainly to show the present context. Yuddhadini means here it is war. In our context, it is basically the work what we perform, the job which is on hand, the responsibility which is on hand. This is what even Gokarna tells Atmadeva in the Bhagavad Mahatmya. Tehe asti mamsa rudhire abhimatam tyajasva jaya sutadishu mamatam tyajasva. He says, Dehe asti mamsa rudhire abhimatam tyajasva. Leave the attachment towards this particular body, which is temporary in nature. Jaya sutadishu abhimatam tejasva. Jaya is wife, Suta is children, abhimatam tejasva. We need to understand the subtle meaning in what he is saying. The subtle meaning is, do your duties for your spouse and for the children, but do not get attached to them. This is very important. We need to do our duty as a householder. We need to do our duty as a family person, but getting attached is wrong. Getting attached brings in sangha. Getting attached brings in sorrows, because once we get attached, we start expecting back. Once we start expecting back and we don't get what we are expected, then sorrows come. Do without expecting back. Pratyupakaram anapeksha hitakari suhriti. It comes in the next verses. We will see sangha both on materialistic things and in terms of the relatives. Both sangha we will have to leave. This is what is given in the Vyakhyana. Now, due to the karma vasanas, there are a lot of the indriyas come and waylay us. Waylay means thieves who basically block us and steal us of everything. Due to our karma vasanas, the indriyas, the sense organs, there are 10 sense organs which waylay us and take us away from our ultimate destination where we are supposed to reach. The 34th verse of the 3rd chapter again talks about equanimity. My dear Bhagavad Bhaktas, we are looking at equanimity in detail because almost the first 6 chapters talks about if this quality is developed, we are sure very, very closer to God and marching forth in our spiritual journey. That is why equanimity of mind is very important. That is why it is taking this amount of time. Indriyasyarthe ragadveshau vyavasthitau tayerna vashamagachet tauhi asya paripanthinau. Tayerna vashamagachet tauhi asya paripanthinau. The dvivachana, the beauty of Sanskrit is not only ekavachana and bahuvachana, one and many like in English. The dvivachana gives a beautiful aura to any shloka. Paripanthinau indriyasyarthe. Indriyasi. There are 2 types of indriyas. One is the gnanendriya, one is the karmendriya. The gnanendriyas are Shrotra, Chakshu, Sparsha, Tvak, Jihva, and Grahanu. This is also told in the 15th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Shrotram, Chakshuhu, Sparshanam cha, Rasanam, Ghranameva cha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. These are the Gnanendriyas, the Indriyas through which we develop knowledge. And the Indriyas, or the sense organs through which we perform action. The Karmendriyas are the feet, the hands, the rectum, the genitals, and the mouth which speaks. We need to understand. Here, we need to understand that the tongue is both in Karmendriya as well as in Gnanendriya. That is why it is said that if we control our tongue, we can control everything. We can control everything. If we control our speech, we can control everything else. We need to understand that Indriyasya Indriyasyarthe Ragadveshau Vyavasthitau. They basically bring this Raga and Dvesha, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madamatsarya. The Raga and Dvesha, Tayorna Vashamagachet. He wants, do not come in contact with this. Tau Yesha Paripantino, they wail us. This is a beautiful model. How do you change yourself from being a Ravana to Vibhishana? Kindly pardon me. This is by nature, which I have been talking to all of you about. How do we change from Ravana to Vibhishana? This is a beautiful model. It says, Indriyasya Indriyasyarthe Ragadveshau Vyavastitau Tayorna Vashamagacche Tauhyasya Paripanthinau. This year, there's a beautiful verse in the Subhashitani. Dashendriyananam Ghoram Yomano Rajanicharam Viveka Sharajalena Shamam Nayati Yoginam. Dashendriyananam Ghoram. We saw 10 Indriyas, 5 Karmendriyas and 5 Gnanendriyas. These are the 10 heads of Ravana. When these Indriyas, when these heads start looking at 10 different directions, then it starts carrying the mind into those directions. Once the mind goes away into those directions, the soul is lost and it diverges. It goes away from the Lord and it is stuck in a particular body, in a particular place, which is very, very far from Lord. And people who develop the discriminating faculty, they use the discriminating faculty, that is the Viveka, and then through the arrows of Viveka, they control those 10 senses, bring the mind back so that it converges on the Atma, and in turn, the Atma converges to the Paramatma. This requires explanation. We are at 9:29. We will take this up in our next session. It requires explanation. The process of the body is Lanka. We need to understand. Just in 30 seconds, I will explain this. The body is Lanka. If the body is driven with the 10 Indriyas which are there inside, then the Manas becomes Ravana. And once the Manas becomes Ravana, the soul, the Atma which is there, is the representation of Sita, which is arrested in this body called Lanka, and the heart is the Ashokavana. It is arrested there. Then an Acharya has to come to give that Santvana to that Jivatma, saying that the God will rescue you. Rama has to come, kill the Ravana within us, and then take Sita into his fold. This is, in short, the Ramayana. And here, when you are looking at Vibhishana, who is always subservient to Rama, he will always want Sita to be with Rama. That is why our mind has to be transformed from Ravana, which is at a lower level, to Vibhishana, which is at a higher level. For that, all the 10 Indriyas should be focusing internally and not be gracing externally. So with this, we stop today's session. We will take up from here with some explanation of this particular model, and then we go further. Next Sunday, which is 12th, is Deepavali. I wish all of you a very divine Deepavali, where the Lord illuminates each one of our intellect. Deepavali, lamp lighting is not external, it is internal. He illuminates every one of our intellects. That is why we will resume this session after the next Sunday. 12th, because of Deepavali, we will not be having this session. We will resume the week later, that is the next Sunday after 12th. We end with the Shanti Mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. सर्वे सन्नामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः शुभदिनं नमस्कारः।